Why do military bases seem to be the hub of activity for cryptids, fairies, and the supernatural? There are so many recorded sightings and encounters with mysterious creatures and lights and sounds in and around military installations, and it got me thinking, why? Well, I have two incredible but wildly different stories for you as examples. This first one, let me know what you think, but to me it has a terrible, menacing sense to it. I've been a military man all my life and have never scared easily, but something happened when I was younger that shook me to my core. My grandparents sent me to military school. I essentially grew up there and I spent a lot of time in the woods around the campus. My friends and I would drink and camp in those woods and we just loved it. That was until this one night when we set up a campfire and we were sitting around telling each other scary stories, just basically trying to scare the hell out of each other. We loved hanging out those nights. But truth be told, we often were frightened, though no one would actually admit it. Those woods were dark and thick, and you would never know what was lurking around you just outside the light of the campfire. So this one night we finished up, we killed the fire and packed up to head back to the campus. The campus was at the top of a hill and the woods were at the bottom. So the guys start heading up the hill, just as we'd done 100 times before. As it happened on that night, I was at the front of the group, and I just had this feeling that everyone behind me had stopped. So I turned and I followed their eyes, and I looked up to the top of the hill, and I could just make out someone standing at the very top of the hill on the inside of the fence. Well, the fence height was a standard 6 feet tall, and this figure was resting its head on the top of the fence, and its arms were hanging over the top of it, like it seemed to be resting itself against the fence while watching me and the guys make our way up the hill. All of us just froze. I'm sure the first thought on everyone's mind was, oh crap, we got caught sneaking out. Then my best buddy, thinking it might be a drill sergeant standing there, yelled out, "We were just checking the campus, sir." But there was no response, not a word or a gesture. It just kept watching us. I was sure we were toast, but we figured it was already done, so we just started heading back up the hill towards it. Then, it must have been about halfway up, all the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I realised that the thing at the fence hadn't moved. Not a flicker of movement. It just stared at us. And I started to realise that its size wasn't right. It was too tall. Its arms were too long. And why was it standing there just staring at us? Then all of a sudden, as though it was reading my mind, this thing screeched. It sounded similar to a mountain lion, which I knew were in the area, but there was no mistake that the sound came from the thing at the fence, not anything in the woods. Well, the next thing, it started to climb the fence, which it did with absolute ease, kind of like a spider. It didn't make sense to our logical minds, but in a split second, we knew that it was all kinds of wrong. Well, we wasted no time. We turned and ran back into the woods, screaming and trying to push past each other to get ahead of the next guy. As for me, I hid in a tree with a buddy, and the other guys, they all hid in some thick brush by the creek, and we all stayed hidden until the sun came out. I tell you, it was a sleepless night. We heard branches breaking below us all night, and worse, it would screech again. Blood-curdling, bone-chilling. You could describe it any which way, but I tell you what, I've never been as scared in my long life as I was that night. The guys never really talked about that night in detail. We never dissected it as a group, but we agreed that we saw and heard the same thing, even if we didn't know what it was. Maybe we thought it was better not to know, but we never hung out in those woods again. Whatever it was, that thing was gunning for those guys. Well, first it waited for them, didn't it? Impatiently, it seems. Then it just came at them. The physical description and the strength of its roar suggests that the creature was not just big, but powerful, I think. It didn't accost any of the young men in the woods, but it seems as though it certainly could have. Perhaps it just wanted to scare them out of its woods. And it worked. And that's one reason why I think military bases attract so much of this kind of activity. Their location. So many military installations are situated away from urban areas. They're close to or within forests, woods, mountains, and deserts. These places where cryptids and fairy and things of the other worlds tend to dwell. Almost all recorded reports of sightings and encounters make it clear that they don't appreciate us intruding into their space, and they often try to scare or intimidate people to leave. But this next story is an exception. But first, if you enjoy my videos, please consider joining my YouTube community. You'll receive exclusive videos and your support will help me to continue creating. Check out the link for more info. In 1970, a pilot named Wes reported an extraordinary sight. While stationed at the Royal Air Force Base at Alcantara in England, Wes was enjoying an entirely ordinary day, going about his usual tasks, which included visiting the secure weapons storage area. On entering this building, Wes was confronted with a frightening sight. Standing before him was a creature he could only describe as werewolf-like. He recorded its appearance as bipedal, around 5 feet tall, hairy, and with a noticeably flat snout and large eyes. The man and the beast both stood looking at each other. Wes later said that although he was frightened by the beast, he never once considered drawing the loaded firearm that he was wearing. Though shocked and fearful, Wes sensed no aggression or immediate threat from the animal. He couldn't say how long they stood there facing each other, but did say that after a time, the beast dropped to all fours and took off out of the weapons storage area and towards a deeply wooded area which bordered the base. Wes was exhilarated by this experience and over the following weeks became somewhat obsessed with seeing this creature again. And he did. Just once, he caught a glimpse of it moving through the woods that it had entered the day of his encounter. I can't help thinking that this creature, whatever it was, planned this encounter. You see, the thing that many military bases have in common is routine. If there were intelligent creatures, fairy or cryptids or aliens, whatever word that you like best, dwelling close by one of these bases, you can bet they would be familiar with the predictable behaviour of those based there, the repetitive practices, the changing of the guards, the training, cleaning of barracks and exercises, and the security schedule. Perhaps they appear before humans at military bases precisely when they want to. There is nothing accidental about these sightings and encounters. They are by design. Well, share your thoughts in the comments below. I can't wait to read them. And remember, it's a strange world. Keep your eyes and ears open and be kind. Cheerio!